you start thinking in overdrive. It's a career-defining test. 80 minutes to prove your worth and get hired. Your stress levels continue to rise, your anxiety skyrockets, but it's okay. You thrive under pressure until you reach your breaking point, and it all falls down from there. If this kind of scenario is familiar to you, then you're probably familiar with high-stakes scenarios, whether that's you practicing a pitch to a boss, having a career-defining moment, or just, doing a test. Either way, you might have noticed that you perform better under that pressure, but is that true? And if it is true, are there any sort of side effects to you because of that enhanced performance? This is not as advertised, and today we're going to take a look at those questions and examine if those are actually true and how you can build in systems to help you maximize that stress to performance ratio. So the first question at hand is, do you actually thrive under that pressure, right? And well, the answer is yes, you actually do perform better under stress. Alrighty, episode's over, pack it up, let's go home, hit that subscribe button. Nah, I'm just joking, please don't leave. But it is the truth, you do thrive under pressure and stress, and you don't need to look any further than to look at your own mirror. You've performed better under stress, and a certain law also supports that sort of evidence. Now, that law only really goes up to a certain point of stress, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. That law is known as the Yerkes-Dodson law. I mentioned it just last episode actually. It essentially dictates how well you perform based on how much stress you experience and kind of vice versa. This law has this sort of bell curve, and at the apex of that bell curve is where you're at your peak for your performance as well as your stress. Essentially, this is the most performance you're going to get out of however stressed you are. The best example of that apex, or how one thrives under pressure, is usually seen in competitive sports. There's always that clutch player, a superstar, that soars above others when it matters most. One of the greatest players ever is none other than LeBron James. For athletes like LeBron, they thrive under that limelight. He in fact performs better in the playoffs versus just regular season games. I'm not just saying that either, the stats will agree with me. He's at that apex of the intersection of stress and performance. But LeBron regularly rests his body, and there's a well-known secret to how he maintains that performance. More on that also later. Essentially, he rests his body and to relieve the physical and mental stress and side effects that accumulate from his performances. That brings us to our second question. What are those side effects of prolonged performance and stress for everyday people like us? Or more specifically, how does that prolonged performance and stress affect our body? Its effects aren't pretty. In fact, there's a lot of health problems, and they're not limited to these effects either, such as cardiovascular health degenerating, loss of sleep, loss of focus, loss of memory, a lot of L's to be taken here. It's not just these things either. Check out what Dr. Chatterjee on this BBC segment had to say.
Now, I see problems every day like anxiety, insomnia, poor concentration, poor memory, weight gain, low libido, gut problems like irritable bowel syndrome, even things like high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes. All of these seemingly separate problems actually at their root cause have stress as a key driver.
In fact, these negative effects cost the economy $300 billion in the US in 2018 through absenteeism, diminished productivity, and directly associated medical bills, according to a report from the American Psychological Association. I should clarify though, these effects don't happen after just one stressful incident. You start to experience these effects when you feel chronic stress. Chronic stress is when that stressful situation doesn't resolve. It's things like worrying about work all the time, or maybe you're in danger of losing your job. These constant things make you experience chronic stress. Now remember how I said in the Yerkes-Dodson law, you perform better under pressure up until that certain point, right? It's because that performance isn't sustainable at that high level of stress, and let me tell you exactly why. This law basically assumes you start at ground zero for that curve, meaning that there's no stressors whatsoever. But when you're at work, there's always this inherent pressure and stress to perform and produce work, right? So you start a little bit higher on that curve. The more stressors that get added onto you, the faster you move up that curve, and all of a sudden, you're already at that peak when you haven't even started to do your work yet. So what happens is you just start to drop off instead of gaining that additional performance boost, and that's why it doesn't become sustainable. You're already starting at such a high level of stress that there's nowhere for your performance to get better. This is where burnout reigns king, and all those negative health effects really start to show up. Let's jump back to basketball for a quick minute. One of the greatest to ever do it, again, LeBron James, takes care of himself to an incredible amount. He's thriving in year 17 and has been since the beginning of his career. So what's his secret to such high-level performance for 17 years and probably ongoing? On top of having quite honestly his 1 in a billion kind of genetic makeup and his unrivaled work ethic and basketball IQ, he spends an estimated $1.5 million on taking care of his body each year. That care is essential for his body to recover for him to work that hard. In fact, one of his former teammates said in an interview that LeBron prioritized his health, rest, and recovery over everything. Now you might be saying, I don't play basketball and I don't have $1.5 million to spend on self-care. And chances are you're right, unless you're LeBron. But this segues nicely into why self-care is so important in sustaining high performance. This isn't going to be some costly snake oil either, it's backed by science. But what if I told you that there's a way for you to still have a relatively high level of performance and still take care of your body? It's this radical concept called self-care. High performance isn't possible without you being fully ready for it. It's like expecting a car to run when it's running on like zero gas, right? And for us, being ready means that we need to be able to take care of ourselves both physically and mentally, not just one or the other, both together. Self-care makes it so that instead of you starting so high up on that stress axis, you get to relieve some of it and start at a much lower point and allow you to perform for longer and at a higher kind of rate of performance. There's a few ways to help you perform self-care and make sure that you're physically and mentally healthy so that you can be the best person that you can be. The first of which is sleep. It really can be that simple. Sleep is one of those things that get blown off in the context of studying or doing work. What you might not know is that sleep helps you retain what you learn, synthesize that information, and even helps clean your brain. You heard me right, clean your brain. It's important that it gets cleaned because our brain uses a good 20% of our entire body's energy per day. That causes a lot of waste to get built up as a byproduct of that energy use. Not cleaning your brain has been associated with more health issues like Alzheimer's disease and other brain diseases, so sleep is essential for our body to take care of itself. Next one is exercise. Exercise is really an investment into your health as it reduces your levels of cortisol and adrenaline while also producing endorphins, which are your body's feel-good hormones. Not only that, regular aerobic exercise, such as running, improves your cardiovascular health, and by setting goals, like running a half marathon or lifting a certain weight, you have something tangible that you can work towards outside of work. This is going to help distract you from the chronic stressors from work. The final one is something that is kind of understated in self-care. It's checking in with yourself on how you feel in terms of stress and anxiety. A catch-all phrase for this is mindfulness, but really, it's kind of giving yourself a reality check. And it's not some sham therapy either, like Goop. It's shown to work for people in all sorts of fields like medicine and law, and for students as well. Some things that I won't go into detail about, but are as equally important, are things in your personal life. You know, check in with yourself emotionally. How are you doing? How are your friends doing? How are your family doing? It's important to check in with those different circles because people are social beings. We need that face-to-face interaction with other people to be able to socialize and essentially become happier. We have FaceTime, we have Skype, but those aren't replacements for face-to-face genuine conversations, and texting isn't either. I like to categorize self-care into 3 main categories: physical, mental, and social. Physical are things like sleep, diet, and exercise, all the things that your body needs to be healthy. Mental is checking in with myself emotionally and seeing how I feel. You know, am I happy at work? Am I being fulfilled? What are the hobbies that I'm doing that make me happy outside of work? And finally, social is everything that involves your social circles with your friends, your family, your colleagues, making sure that you're keeping up with them as much as you can, and making sure that the social side of you is fulfilled as well. What are your own self-care strategies? Leave us a comment down below with some of your best tips and tricks. So, to wrap it all up, let's recap. To answer the question of do we thrive under pressure, the answer is yes, but it can't be for too long before we burn out. The negative effects of burning out can include loss of sleep, loss of memory, affecting our cardiovascular health negatively, amongst other things. So, for us to be able to maintain a relatively high level of performance while taking care of ourselves, we need to practice self-care. Things such as exercise, sleep, the physical aspect of things. For the mental aspect of things, you need to check in with yourself emotionally and see how you feel at work. You know, are you happy with your work? Do you need to move? And are you keeping up with your friends and your family and making sure that that side of you is fulfilled as well? That's going to be all from us this time around. If you want us to debunk or demystify anything in the future, you can let us know in the comments down below, or you can DM us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at mytechne.io. That's mytechne.io. You can support our channel by hitting that thumbs up down below, and if you really liked our content, hit that subscribe button for more of our future videos. So until next time, we here at MyTechne hope that you stay productive and stay healthy.